I watched my billionaire ex introduce his daughter as his only child. At the school talent show, not knowing our daughter was performing too, my ex-husband stood on that stage, microphone in hand, his voice warm and proud as it echoed through the auditorium. "Lawson, would you like to say a few words?" The principal had asked. And he did. Oh, he did. Meadow is my whole world. Everything I build, every company I grow, every investment I make, it's all for her future. Being her father is the greatest privilege of my life. She's my one and only child. My one and only child. I sat in the back row, hands trembling, watching 300 people applaud this beautiful declaration of fatherly love. And backstage, behind the velvet curtain he couldn't see, our daughter waited for her turn to perform. Ruby, 11 years old. His eyes, his smile, his daughter, the one he didn't know existed. Ruby Castellano, piano performance, number 14. That's what the program said. I had about 20 minutes before my world detonated. 20 minutes before Lawson Fletcher, billionaire tech entrepreneur, saw his own face staring back at him from a stage he'd funded. 20 minutes before the secret I'd kept for 11 years shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. But let me take you back. Let me tell you how we got here, to this moment, to this impossible collision of past and present, of truth and lies, of the daughter he knew and the daughter he didn't. Have you ever made a choice so big, so irreversible, that it carved a canyon through your entire life? Have you ever loved someone enough to disappear? Have you ever watched your child ask about a father who doesn't know she exists? I have. And tonight, in this prep school auditorium that smelled like floor polish and nervous energy, everything I'd built, every careful lie, every protective silence was about to crumble. If you've ever kept a secret that could destroy everything, if you have ever had to choose between truth and protection, stay with me. Because what happened after that talent show, after my billionaire ex discovered the daughter I'd hidden from him, after our two worlds crashed together, it changed 5 lives forever. And I still don't know if I made the right choice, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, the real beginning. Not 11 years ago when I made my choice, but tonight, in the spring of 2024, at Westridge Preparatory's annual talent showcase, where 2 half-sisters were about to perform on the same stage, where one father was about to have his perfect life imploded, and where I was about to face the man I'd loved and left, the man I'd erased from our daughter's life. The auditorium was packed. Parents clutched programs, phones already positioned to record their children's 15 seconds of glory. Some held bouquets. Others had cameras with lenses that probably cost more than my monthly rent. This was Westridge Prep after all, Portland's most elite private school. The kind of place where the parent pickup line looked like a luxury car dealership. I didn't belong here. My 15-year-old Honda Civic in the parking lot was proof of that. But Ruby had earned her spot. Full academic scholarship, gifted program, top of her class in literally everything she touched. My brilliant, talented, beautiful girl who practiced piano until her fingers ached, who dreamed of being a concert pianist. Or a marine biologist, she couldn't decide which, who asked about her father with increasing frequency as she got older. Where does he live, Mom? Why can't I meet him? Does he know about me? Would he love me if he knew me? I'd lied, over and over, gentle lies, protective lies. He lives far away, sweetheart. He would love you if he knew you, baby. It's complicated, honey, but the truth? The truth was sitting in the 3rd row with his copper-haired girlfriend and the daughter he actually claimed. Mom, can you see okay from here? Ruby's voice pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. She stood in the aisle, beautiful in the navy dress we'd found at a consignment shop last week. We'd spent an hour trying on dresses, looking for something performance-worthy that wouldn't destroy my budget. The one we chose was perfect, simple, elegant, appropriate. It made her look older than 11. But I'd seen the dress Meadow wore when she arrived. Custom-made, clearly. The kind of costume that spoke of private lessons and professional choreographers, and the kind of money I'd never have. Perfect view, sweetheart, I said, forcing brightness into my voice that I absolutely didn't feel. Are you nervous? Terrified, Ruby admitted. She slid into the seat beside me, and I could feel her trembling slightly. There are so many people here, Mom. What if I forget the notes? What if my hands shake? What if I mess up? I took her cold fingers in mine, held them tight. Then you'll remember that you've practiced Claire de Lune 1,000 times. That it's in your bones now. That it's part of you. I squeezed her hand. "And that even if you play a wrong note, even if you play 100 wrong notes, I will still be the proudest person in this entire room." She leaned her head against my shoulder for just a moment. A rare gesture from my increasingly independent, almost teenager. "I wish Dad could be here," she whispered. The words were a knife between my ribs. Sharp, precise, devastating. "I know, baby," I managed. "I know." But here was the thing Ruby didn't know, couldn't know, would never in a million years guess. Her father was here. I'd seen Lawson Fletcher arrive 20 minutes ago. He was impossible to miss, even in a crowd of Portland's wealthy elite. 12 years had been remarkably kind to him. The lanky graduate student I'd fallen for at 23, the one who lived on ramen and big dreams, had been replaced by a man who commanded space, broader shoulders, expensive suit that probably cost more than I made in a month, the easy confidence of someone who'd conquered every goal he'd ever set, who'd built an empire from code and ambition. Portland Business Journal had just named him one of the Pacific Northwest's most influential tech entrepreneurs under 40. I knew because I'd Googled him. In weak moments, late at night when Ruby was asleep, I'd search his name and torture myself with the life he'd built, the life I'd walked away from, the life I'd decided Ruby couldn't be part of. He hadn't come alone tonight. Fiona Laurent held his arm as they walked in. I recognized her immediately from the society pages, from Instagram, from the background of Lawson's rare social media posts. Daughter of the Laurent Hotel dynasty, philanthropist, board member of half a dozen arts organizations, beautiful in that effortless way of people who'd never worried about money, who'd never chosen between groceries and music lessons, who'd never shopped consignment stores for performance dresses. And beside them, holding Lawson's other hand, was Meadow, 9 years old. Lawson's eyes, Fiona's delicate features, the daughter he showed to the world, the daughter he posted about, bragged about, adored publicly. I'd tortured myself with their social media, watched this other daughter grow up in the life I denied Ruby. Birthday parties with ponies, vacations in Tuscany, dance recitals at professional theaters, first day of school photos at elite private academies, Halloween costumes that were clearly professional quality, Christmas mornings with presents stacked higher than the designer tree. Everything I couldn't give Ruby, everything Ruby deserved and would never have. "Ruby, you should head backstage soon," I said gently. "They'll be starting in about 15 minutes. You'll want to get settled, do your breathing exercises, remember?" She nodded, stood, smoothed her consignment dress. She looked at me with those dark eyes. Lawson's eyes. "Do I look okay, Mom?" "You look absolutely beautiful," I said. And I meant it. She was beautiful, stunning, perfect. "And you're going to be amazing up there. I believe in you completely." She squeezed my hand one more time, then disappeared through the side door that led to the performer's waiting area. I watched her go, my heart already aching for what was coming, because I knew something she didn't. I knew that in about 40 to 5 minutes, our entire world was going to shift on its axis. I knew that the moment Lawson saw Ruby's face under those stage lights, the moment he registered the features that mirrored his own, the genetic roadmap that declared louder than any paternity test that she was his, everything would change. I just didn't know how. The lights dimmed. The crowd settled. Principal Morrison, a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and the practiced smile of someone who'd spent decades managing wealthy parents, stepped to the microphone. "Welcome, families, to Westridge Preparatory's annual Spring Talent Showcase." His voice boomed through the sound system. "We have an incredible evening of performances planned. Before we begin, however, I'd like to acknowledge a very special guest in our audience tonight." My stomach dropped. "No. Please no. Many of you know Lawson Fletcher, whose extraordinarily generous donation funded our new performing arts wing, the wing that houses the theater we're sitting in right now, the practice rooms where our students hone their craft, the instruments that make this program possible. Mr. Fletcher, would you please stand?" I watched from my back row vantage point as Lawson rose from his third row seat. That easy smile, the comfortable wave to the crowd. Fiona beamed up at him with unmistakable pride. Meadow clapped enthusiastically beside her mother, clearly used to seeing her father recognized and celebrated. The audience applauded, enthusiastic, grateful. This was a man who'd written a check that transformed their children's education. "Mr. Fletcher has been an absolute champion of arts education," Principal Morrison continued. "As a father himself, He understands the transformative power of creative expression. Lawson, would you like to say a few words? I know everyone would love to hear from you. No, 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 no. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't part of the program. Lawson made his way to the stage with the comfortable stride of someone utterly at ease with public speaking. He'd given TED Talks, keynote addresses at tech conferences, investment pitches to rooms full of venture capitalists. This was nothing to him. He took the microphone from Principal Morrison. Thank you. I'm truly honored to support Westridge's incredible arts program. His voice was rich, warm, the same voice I'd once known intimately. The voice that had whispered promises in the dark, that had told me he loved me, that had said children would derail everything he was working toward. He paused, his gaze sweeping the auditorium. For one heart-stopping moment, his eyes passed right over me. No recognition, no pause. 12 years had changed me too. The 23-year-old he'd known had become someone else entirely. Harder, tired, invisible. As most of you know, my daughter Meadow is performing tonight. He smiled toward the third row. She's doing a contemporary dance piece she choreographed herself, and I couldn't be more proud. The audience made appreciative sounds. Parents always loved hearing other parents gush. Being Meadow's father has taught me that every child deserves the chance to discover their passion, to find their voice, to express themselves creatively. That's why programs like this matter so much to me. That's why I believe in investing in arts education. He was good at this. The inspirational speech, the connection between personal experience and philanthropic values. I could see parents nodding, some wiping their eyes. And then he said it. The words that would echo in my head for weeks, months, maybe years. Meadow is my whole world. Everything I build, every company I grow, every investment I make, it's all for her future. Being her father is the greatest privilege of my life. He paused, looked directly at Meadow. His face softened in a way I remembered, in a way that made my chest constrict. She's my one and only child, and watching her pursue her dreams reminds me every single day what truly matters. Not wealth, not success, not accolades, but love, family, being present for the people who matter most. The applause was thunderous, deafening. Parents stood. Some whistled. This was the kind of touching moment people came to these events for. Lawson returned to his seat, pressed a kiss to Meadow's forehead. Fiona's hand found his. They looked like a goddamn commercial for the perfect family. The beautiful couple, the talented daughter, the complete, unbroken unit. And somewhere backstage, my daughter, our daughter, the child he'd just publicly erased, prepared to perform on the piano his donation had purchased. I couldn't breathe. The auditorium walls pressed in, crushing my lungs. My vision tunneled. Around me, parents settled back into their seats, checking their phone cameras, adjusting recording angles. Everything was normal for them. Just another school talent show. Just another proud father giving a touching speech. But my world had just fractured. My one and only child. Not the daughter I'm raising. Not the child I know about. Not the child who lives with me. A complete, total, unambiguous declaration. Meadow was his sole heir. His singular legacy. His only daughter. How was I supposed to explain this to Ruby? How was I supposed to tell my brilliant, sensitive, already fragile about this topic daughter that the father she'd asked about her entire life, the father I'd promised would love her if he knew her, had just stood before hundreds of people and declared another girl his one and only child? The show began. Some kind of violin solo. A sixth grader, I think. I registered none of it. My mind spun, calculating, trying to figure out how to extract Ruby without her performing. Without the inevitable moment when Lawson would see her face and recognize himself in it. But I'd promised Ruby she could do this. Promised she could perform. She'd worked so hard, practiced until her fingers cramped, poured her whole heart into Debussy's notes. This was her moment, her achievement. I couldn't take it from her, not even to protect her from what was coming, not even to protect myself from the confrontation I wasn't ready for. The performances continued, a gymnastics routine that drew gasps, a magic act that got laughs, a poetry reading that was surprisingly moving. I absorbed none of it. Just watched the program, counting down. Number 8, the student announcer called. A sophomore girl, her voice bright and clear through the speakers. Meadow Fletcher, performing an original contemporary dance piece. My attention snapped fully back to the stage. This was her, the daughter he claimed, the daughter who existed in his world. Meadow walked out in a flowing costume, blues and silvers that caught the light. Her small frame somehow commanded the space. The music began, something modern, electronic, haunting, and she was good, really, genuinely good. Her movements were fluid, expressive, technically proficient, in a way that spoke of expensive training. Private lessons with professionals, the kind of instruction I could never afford for Ruby. She'd clearly been dancing for years, had probably started at 3 or 4, had access to the best teachers money could buy. Everything I couldn't give Ruby. I watched Lawson and Fiona in the third row. Their faces glowed with unmistakable adoration. Fiona's hand covered her mouth, eyes shining with tears of pride. Lawson leaned forward, completely absorbed, his expression soft with love. When Meadow finished with a graceful final pose, the applause was genuine and enthusiastic. She took her bow, her young face radiant. She found her parents in the audience, and her smile grew impossibly wider. The moment she exited the stage, she came bounding down the side steps. Lawson met her at the bottom, swept her into his arms, spun her around. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw her giggle, saw her throw her arms around his neck, saw the pure, uncomplicated love between a father and daughter. It was beautiful, objectively beautiful, and it destroyed me. Because Ruby deserved that. She deserved to run to her father after a performance, to be swept up and spun and told she was amazing, to feel like someone's whole world, to know what it felt like when your father looked at you like you hung the moon. Instead, she had me, just me, working 2 jobs to afford tuition at a school where I didn't belong, where my car was the oldest in the lot, where other parents talked about vacation homes while I clipped coupons, sitting in the back row instead of the third, buying consignment dresses instead of custom costumes, being both mother and father, and never quite enough of either. 6 more performances passed. A cello solo, a juggling act, twin sisters singing a duet, an impressive skateboarding demonstration that seemed dangerous for an indoor venue but got huge applause, a monologue from Shakespeare, a hip-hop dance crew, each one blurred into the next. I was dimly aware of checking my watch obsessively, counting down, my heart rate increasing with each passing minute. Number 14, the student announcer called. My breath stopped. Ruby Castellano, performing Claire de Lune by Claude Debussy. My daughter walked onto that stage with her head high. I knew she was terrified. I knew her stomach was probably in knots, her hands probably shaking. But you'd never know it from looking at her. She held herself with dignity, with grace, with the quiet confidence I'd tried so hard to instill in her despite everything. She sat at the beautiful grand piano, the one Lawson's donation had purchased. The irony wasn't lost on me. She positioned her hands over the keys, took a breath I could see even from the back row, and then she began to play. I'd heard this piece 1,000 times, 1,000 times, in our cramped apartment with the piano we'd bought used on Craigslist. The one I'd sacrificed for, the one that took up most of our tiny living room, during practice sessions that stretched long into the evening after homework was done, during her lessons with Mrs. Chen, the retired concert pianist who charged us a fraction of her normal rate because she believed in Ruby's talent. But tonight, under the stage lights, with 300 people holding their collective breath, Ruby played like she was channeling something divine. The notes floated through the auditorium, delicate and haunting and absolutely heartbreakingly perfect. Each phrase shaped with maturity beyond her years, each dynamic shift executed with precision. Each moment of the piece lived, not just performed. She didn't miss a single note. Her hands didn't shake. She was magnificent, transcendent, the kind of talented that couldn't be bought, only born with and nurtured and loved into blooming. Tears streamed down my face. Pride and anguish twisted together until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. That was my daughter, my baby, the girl I'd raised alone, the girl who was brilliant and kind and talented and everything good in this world. And then I made the mistake of looking at Lawson. He'd gone completely still. His entire body language had shifted in an instant, from relaxed to rigid, from casual observer to someone who'd just seen a ghost. He was staring at Ruby with an expression I couldn't quite read. Confusion, recognition, something deeper, something primal stirring beneath the surface. Fiona leaned toward him, whispered something. He didn't respond. didn't even seem to hear her. His eyes were locked on Ruby, on her profile as she played, on the way the light caught her features. The piece continued. Ruby's hands moved across the keys with the grace of someone who'd been playing her whole life. Because she had. This was her passion, her love, her escape. When Ruby played piano, the world made sense. When Ruby played piano, she was free. The final notes hung in the air, delicate, perfect, fading into silence. For a moment, no one moved. The audience seemed to hold its collective breath. Then the applause erupted, loud, genuine, enthusiastic. Ruby's performance had been one of the night's clear standouts. People weren't just clapping politely, they were actually moved. Ruby stood, took her bow, her face flushed with accomplishment, with the rush of having done something difficult and done it well. She allowed herself a small smile, and as she turned to exit the stage, as she shifted her angle, the overhead lights caught her face just right. I watched Lawson's expression as recognition hit him like a physical blow. The dark eyes, his eyes, the determined set of her jaw, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear as she walked, a gesture I'd seen him make 10,000 times. The shape of her face when she smiled at the applause. The genetic markers that declared, louder than words ever could, "This is your child." He saw it. All of it. The truth written in bone structure and mannerisms and the unmistakable evidence of shared DNA. His face went pale beneath his tan. I saw him mouth something, maybe "oh my God," maybe "no," maybe something else entirely. Fiona said something sharp, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. Lawson stood abruptly, causing the people in the row in front of him to turn around with irritated looks. He didn't notice, didn't care. He was already moving, already pushing past Fiona's grabbing hand, already heading for the side aisle, toward the door that led backstage. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. My body moved on pure instinct. I shot up from my seat, pushed past the other parents in my row. "Excuse me, sorry, excuse me, please. I have to." My daughter. Annoyed whispers followed me. Someone muttered something about rude. I didn't care. I had to get to Ruby first. Had to intercept whatever was about to happen. Had to protect her from a confrontation she wasn't prepared for, a truth she didn't to know yet, a father who just discovered her existence in the worst possible way. I burst through the backstage door just as Ruby emerged from the performer's waiting area. Her face was still glowing, still riding the high of a successful performance. "Mom," she practically bounced over to me. "Did you see? Did you hear? I didn't mess up once. Not once. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. You were amazing, baby." I pulled her close, needing the contact, needing to ground myself, trying desperately to figure out how to get her out of here before... Excuse me. The voice froze me in place. Deep, familiar. 12 years older, but unmistakable. I turned slowly, keeping Ruby slightly behind me. Protective instinct. Lawson stood 10 feet away in the narrow backstage corridor. His face was pale. His eyes darted between me and Ruby with something like horror, like he was seeing something impossible, like reality had just tilted sideways and he couldn't find his balance. "Paige," my name came out strangled, disbelieving. "Paige Castellano?" Ruby looked up at me, confused. "Mom? Who's that?" "Hello, Lawson." My voice was surprisingly steady, calmer than I felt. Inside, my heart hammered against my ribs. My hands shook, but my voice stayed level. I'd had 11 years to prepare for this moment, even though I'd prayed it would never come. "I need..." He stopped, ran his hand through his hair in that gesture I remembered too well. The one he always did when he was stressed, or thinking hard, or trying to process something overwhelming. "Can we? Is she?" He couldn't seem to form complete sentences. "Ruby, honey," I said, not taking my eyes off Lawson. "Could you wait for me in the hallway for just a minute?" Just 1 minute, I promise." "But Mom..." "Please, baby. Just wait right outside that door." I pointed to the exit that led to the main hallway. "Don't leave. Just wait there where I can see you." She hesitated. Her intuitive 11-year-old radar was pinging like crazy. She could sense that something significant was happening, that the air between me and this stranger was charged with history and emotion and things she didn't understand. But she nodded. "Okay. 1 minute, though." 1 minute, I confirmed. She slipped past us, throwing one long, curious look over her shoulder at Lawson before disappearing through the door. I watched to make sure she actually stopped in the hallway, that she was safe, that she wasn't running off somewhere I couldn't protect her. The moment she was out of earshot, Lawson closed the distance between us. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that I could see the fine lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 12 years ago. Close enough to see that his hands were trembling. What? He stopped again. Started over. Is she? He couldn't say it. Couldn't form the question. I decided to spare him the struggle. Yes. The single word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Just yes. Confirmation of what he'd already guessed, what his eyes had already told him when he saw Ruby's face under those lights. How old? 11. 12 in August. I watched him do the math. 12 years since we'd broken up. 9 months before that would have been December, the last time we'd been together. The weekend we'd tried and failed to save our failing relationship. The weekend that created Ruby. The timeline was undeniable. There was no other possibility. This was his daughter. You never told me. It wasn't an accusation, not exactly. Just a statement of incomprehensible fact. A declaration of something his brain couldn't quite process. You never told me I had a daughter. No. Why? The question broke on the word. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. Why wouldn't you tell me I had a daughter? Why would you keep her from me? Why would you let me? He gestured vaguely toward the auditorium, toward where he'd stood on stage and declared Meadow his one and only child. Oh God, what I said up there. If she heard, oh God. Before I could answer, before I could explain or defend or justify any of it, footsteps approached from the auditorium entrance. Lawson, what's going on? Fiona's voice, tight with concern and irritation. You just left in the middle of the show. You pushed past me without a word. What is happening? She appeared around the corner, Meadow holding her hand. Fiona was even more beautiful up close. Flawless skin, designer clothes, the kind of effortless elegance that came from generations of wealth and confidence. She stopped short when she saw me, saw Lawson's devastated expression, saw the tense space between us. Her sharp eyes moved from Lawson to me and back again, clearly trying to piece together what she'd walked into. Daddy? Meadow's small voice cut through the tension. Are you okay? You look weird. Lawson looked at his acknowledged daughter, at the 9-year-old who'd only ever known him. As her father, who'd never had to share him, or doubt his love, or wonder if she mattered. Then his eyes flicked toward the hallway where Ruby waited, oblivious. The two halves of his life, colliding, right here in a prep school backstage area that smelled like sawdust and old costumes. Fiona, could you take Meadow to the car? His voice was rough. I'll meet you there in 10 minutes. Lawson. Fiona's tone was sharp. What is happening? Who is this woman? Please. There was something desperate in his voice, something that made it clear this wasn't optional. 10 minutes. I'll explain everything. I promise I'll explain everything. But please, just take Meadow to the car. Fiona's expression hardened. She was clearly a woman used to being included in important conversations, used to being the first to know things, used to standing beside Lawson through everything. Being dismissed, even gently, obviously stung. But something in Lawson's face, some raw desperation, made her nod curtly. Come on, sweetie, she said to Meadow, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. Let's get your things. Daddy will meet us in a few minutes. But I want to stay, Meadow protested. I want to see the rest of the show. We're leaving now, Fiona said firmly. She threw one last sharp look at me, clearly memorizing my face, clearly filing this moment away to dissect later. As they disappeared back toward the auditorium, Lawson turned to me with wild eyes. Eyes that begged for answers, for explanations, for some way to make the last 5 minutes make sense. You have to explain. The words came out raw. Please, Paige. I need to understand why you kept my daughter from me for 11 years. I need to understand how you could. He stopped, swallowed hard. How you could let me believe she didn't exist. The pain in his voice cracked something open in my chest. But beneath my guilt, beneath my regret, I felt the simmer of my own anger rising. Because yes, I'd made a choice. Yes, I'd kept Ruby from him. But he'd made choices too. Choices that led directly to mine. You made it very clear that children weren't in your 5-year plan. My voice was low but sharp. each word deliberate. That you needed to build your company first, that a family would, and I quote, derail everything you were working toward. Those were your exact words, Lawson. Derail everything. That was a conversation about timing. No, I cut him off. It was a conversation about priorities, about what mattered to you. And I knew exactly where I ranked. I crossed my arms, a defensive barrier. When I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after we broke up, I had a choice. Tell you and watch you resent the child that destroyed your dreams. Watch you blame her for ruining your plans. Watch you choose your company over her every single day. Or handle it myself. You should have told me anyway. His voice rose slightly. You should have let me make my own choice. You didn't have the right to. Like you gave Ruby the choice to exist in your world tonight. The words came out harder than I intended, sharp as broken glass. You stood on that stage and called Meadow your one and only child. Your only child, Lawson. Do you have any idea what that would have done to Ruby if she'd understood? If she'd known that the man playing proud father to one daughter had just publicly erased another? The color drained from his face. I didn't know. How could I know when you never? That's the point. I stepped closer, my voice dropping to a fierce whisper. You didn't know because I didn't tell you. And I didn't tell you because you'd made it crystal clear that a child would be an inconvenience, a derailment, a problem to be solved or avoided. I never said. You didn't have to say it explicitly. I could hear the tremor in my voice now, 11 years of justified and unjustified anger bleeding through. Your actions said it loud enough. You chose your company over our relationship. You chose 18-hour days over date nights. You chose investor meetings over my birthday. You chose everything else over us. Every single time. So when I found out I was pregnant, when I sat in that clinic bathroom staring at 2 pink lines, I made a choice. Maybe it was wrong. Maybe I should have told you, let the chips fall. But I did what I thought was protecting everyone. Protecting Ruby from a father who'd resent her. Protecting you from the burden you didn't want. Protecting myself from watching you choose your dreams over our daughter every single day. The silence between us was heavy with accusations and ancient wounds, with 12 years of separation and secrets and the weight of impossible choices. She asks about me? Lawson's voice was barely audible, rough with emotion. The question caught me completely off guard. Of all the things I'd expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. All the time, I heard myself answer honestly. She asks about you all the time. What do you tell her? That you live far away? That you'd love her if you knew her? That your absence isn't her fault? My throat tightened with unshed tears. I've spent 11 years protecting her from the truth. That I made a choice that kept her from you. That you made choices that made me believe keeping her from you was the kindest option. Lawson's eyes were bright with tears now. One spilled over, tracked down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. What's she like? He asked. And something in his voice had changed. The defensiveness had dropped away. Now there was just genuine hunger to know. Desperate need to understand what he'd missed. The question disarmed me. I'd expected anger. Demands. Maybe threats of lawyers and custody and revenge. Not this raw, vulnerable wanting to know his daughter. She's extraordinary, I said softly. And once I started, I couldn't stop. Top of her class in everything. Literally everything. Math, science, literature, history. She wants to be a concert pianist or a marine biologist. She changes her mind about twice a week. She reads 3 grade levels above her age. Has perfect pitch. Cries at animal shelter commercials. A small, wet laugh escaped me at that last part. She's kind almost to a fault. Last year, she donated all her birthday money to her best friend Emma, whose father lost his job. She volunteers at the library, reading to kids every Saturday. She makes me leave extra big tips at restaurants because she worries about the servers. She's everything good about both of us, and none of the broken parts. Lawson was openly crying now. Silent tears streaming down his face that he made no attempt to hide or stop. I want to know her, he said. Please, Paige. Please. I want to be part of her life. His voice cracked. I want to be her father. And Fiona? I asked quietly. Meadow? Where do they fit in this scenario? You're building a life with them. Fiona and I. He stopped. Our relationship is complicated. Don't you dare. My anger flared again. Don't you dare blow up your relationship and then blame it on us. Ruby doesn't need that guilt. She doesn't need to be the reason your life fell apart. I'm not. I'm just saying that discovering Ruby exists has forced me to confront some truths I've been avoiding. He met my eyes directly. About what I really want from my life. About whether I'm building something real with Fiona or just something that looks good from the outside. About whether Meadow and I are a family or just, he trailed off. That's not my problem to solve, I said firmly. That's between you and Fiona. I know. He ran his hand through his hair again. I know. I'm just asking for a chance to know my daughter. I'll handle Fiona. I'll handle the complications. I'll figure out how to explain this to Meadow. But please, Paige, don't keep Ruby from me out of anger at my mistakes. The vulnerability in his voice reminded me painfully of the man I'd fallen for at 23, before the success had consumed him, before the company had become his entire identity, before ambition had eclipsed everything else. This was the Lawson I'd loved. Uncertain, real, human. We take it slow, I said finally. Very slow. She doesn't know who you are yet. She doesn't know you're here. We'll start with you as someone Mom used to know who wants to get to know her. If, and only if, she's comfortable, we can tell her the truth eventually. How long is eventually? However long it takes for me to trust that you won't disappear when fatherhood gets inconvenient. I held his gaze. Or when it conflicts with your other family. Or when board meetings run late. Or when it's hard. He flinched but nodded. Okay, your rules. Whatever rules you want. I'll follow them. Just please don't shut me out completely. Before either of us could say more, Ruby appeared in the doorway. She'd clearly gotten tired of waiting. Mom? Her voice was uncertain. Are we leaving soon? Everyone else is gone already. I looked at my daughter, then at Lawson, whose face had transformed at the sight of her up close. The naked longing in his expression was painful to witness, like a man seeing water after years in the desert, like someone discovering something precious they didn't know they'd lost. Yes, baby, I said gently. We're leaving now. I held out my hand. Ruby took it, tucked herself against my side. Safe, protected. Mine. But she looked at Lawson with open curiosity, her brilliant mind clearly working, clearly sensing that this wasn't just a random encounter. Are you one of Mom's old friends? She asked directly. Yes, Lawson managed. His voice was rough with emotion he was clearly trying to control. I'm Lawson. Your performance was incredible, Ruby. That was one of the most beautiful renditions of Claire de Lune I've ever heard, and I mean that sincerely. Ruby's face lit up the way it always did when heard, and I mean that sincerely. Ruby's face lit up the way it always did when someone appreciated her music. Really? Thank you. I practiced for 3 months, every single day, sometimes twice a day. It showed. Lawson's smile was genuine despite the tears still wet on his cheeks. You have remarkable talent. True gift. Ruby's been playing since she was 6, I interjected, my hand protective on her shoulder. She's won several regional competitions. She's really dedicated to her craft. Pride and regret warred visibly in Lawson's expression. Pride in her accomplishment. Devastating regret for all the milestones he'd missed. First recitals. First competitions. Years and years of a life lived without him. I'd love to hear you play again sometime, he said carefully, clearly trying not to overstep. If that would be okay with you and your mom. Ruby looked up at me questioningly. I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face. We'll see, I said. Maybe. It was the best I could offer. As we walked to our car, Ruby was quiet beside me. Thinking. Processing. My daughter who noticed everything, who read people like books, who had emotional intelligence far beyond her years. We reached the Honda, parked far from the main entrance where the Tesla and Mercedes and BMWs clustered. I unlocked the doors. Ruby climbed in, buckled her seatbelt. I started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot. Made it 3 blocks before Ruby spoke. Mom? Yes, honey. That man seemed really sad about something. Kids. They saw everything. Missed nothing. Especially not Ruby. He's just dealing with some complicated grown-up stuff, I said carefully. Does it have to do with you? She turned to look at me, those dark eyes searching. He looked at you like he knew you. Like, really knew you. Not just old friends knew you. Something more. I chose my words carefully, aware that we were approaching territory I wasn't prepared for. We used to be close, I admitted. A long time ago. Before you were born. How close? Very close. Ruby absorbed this. I could practically hear her brilliant mind working through implications, piecing together clues. Mom? Her voice was different now. Smaller. Uncertain. Yes, baby? Is he? She stopped. Started again. That man. Lawson. Is he my father? I nearly drove off the road. My hands jerked the wheel. The car swerved slightly before I corrected. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. What makes you ask that? I managed, even though I knew it was futile. Ruby had already figured it out. Of course she had. He has my eyes, she said simply. Exactly my eyes. And when he smiled at me, it looked like my smile in the mirror, like when I practice expressions for piano performances and watch myself, and he got really emotional watching me play, not like a stranger would, like it meant something personal. She paused. Plus, you got that look you get when you're trying not to cry, and you were talking to him really intensely. And he called you Paige, which means he knows your first name, which you said you tell people you're close to. And you said you used to be very close before I was born, which is when my dad would have been around. She'd laid it out like a mathematical proof. Logical. Undeniable. I pulled into a parking lot. A closed grocery store. I couldn't have this conversation while driving. I put the car in park, turned off the engine, and turned to face my too smart daughter. Yes, I said quietly. Lawson is your biological father. She was quiet for a long moment. Processing. I watched emotions flicker across her face. Shock, confusion, hurt, anger, something that might have been hope. The man who introduced that other girl as his only child, she finally said. Oh God, she'd been paying attention to that. Of course she had. Yes, I admitted. So, I have a sister I didn't know about. Half-sister, I clarified. Her name is Meadow. She's 9. Another long silence. Does he know about me? Ruby asked. Her voice was very small now. Very young. Or am I a secret? He didn't know until tonight, I said. When he saw you perform, when the lights hit your face a certain way, he recognized you. He saw the resemblance. So for my whole life, he's had another daughter and didn't know about me. It wasn't a question, just a statement of painful fact. Yes, why didn't you tell him? This was it. The moment I dreaded for 11 years. The moment my daughter would ask me to justify the choice that had shaped her entire life, that had given her existence its particular shape and limitations and losses. Because when I found out I was pregnant, your father and I weren't together anymore, I said slowly. We'd broken up. And before we broke up, he'd made it very clear that he wasn't ready for children. That his career, his company, was the most important thing to him. That having a family would derail all his plans. I took her hand. I made a choice to raise you on my own because I was afraid that if I told him, you'd grow up feeling like a burden, like you'd ruined his life, like he resented your existence. I thought I was protecting you. Were you protecting me? Ruby asked. Her voice was very quiet, very steady. Or were you protecting yourself from being rejected? The insight from an 11-year-old hit like a physical blow. Precise, devastating. True, both, I admitted. Because lying to Ruby had never worked and wouldn't start working now. I was scared, Ruby. Scared he'd resent you. Scared he'd reject us both. Scared I'd have to watch you grow up knowing your father wished you didn't exist. And yes, scared of facing his rejection myself. Of having to hear him say he didn't want us. Tears blurred my vision. I made the choice I thought was best at the time. And maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have told him anyway and let him make his own decision. Maybe I robbed you both of 11 years you deserve to have together. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Ruby was quiet, her hand still in mine. What happens now? She finally asked. That's up to you, honey. I squeezed her fingers. Lawson wants to know you, to be part of your life, but only if you want that too. This is your choice, nobody else's. What about the other girl? Meadow? And the fancy lady with them? Fiona, I supplied. She's Lawson's girlfriend, partner. I don't actually know the exact status, but yes, they're part of his life. Which means, if you decide you want to know him, things will be complicated. There will be his other family to navigate. Because Meadow thinks she's his only kid, Ruby said flatly. Yes. Ruby stared out the window at the empty parking lot, at the dark store, at nothing. I'm mad at him, she said finally, for not knowing about me, for having another daughter he loves and shows off while I didn't even exist to him, for calling her his only child when I was right there in the same room. She turned to look at me. But I'm also kind of mad at you, for not telling him, for choosing for both of us without asking what I might want someday. The honesty hurt, but she deserved to voice it, deserved to express her anger without me getting defensive. You're allowed to be mad at me, I said, at both of us. We made choices that affected your entire life without ever asking your opinion because you didn't exist yet to have one. Do I have to decide right now? Ruby asked. About whether I want to know him? No, baby. You can take all the time you need, days, weeks, months, whatever you need. She nodded slowly. Can we go home now? I'm really tired. Of course. I started the car, drove home through Portland's rainy streets. Ruby was silent beside me, lost in thought, processing a truth that had rewritten her understanding of her own life in the span of 20 minutes. That night, after Ruby had gone to bed, after I'd checked on her 3 times and found her, staring at the ceiling each time, after I'd finally retreated to my own room, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I knew who it was. I stared at the screen for 3 rings before answering. Hello, is she okay? Lawson's voice was hoarse, wrecked. Ruby, is she okay after everything tonight? She's processing. I kept my voice low, even though Ruby's door was closed. She's confused and angry and hurt. At me. At both of us, actually. I settled back against my headboard. She's a smart kid, Lawson. Smart enough to understand that her existence isn't your fault or mine. Life happens, but the choices we made about telling her, about how she'd find out, about what we each prioritized, those were on us. Silence on the other end. I heard him breathing. Heard what might have been crying. Fiona knows, he said finally. How'd that conversation go? A bitter laugh. About as well as you'd expect. She's devastated. Furious. Wants to know how I could have a child I didn't know about. Whether there are other secret children out there. Whether I ever actually loved her or if she was just filling a convenient role. Were you? I couldn't help asking. Was she just convenient? More silence. Longer this time. I don't know anymore, he admitted. I thought what we had was real. I thought we were building towards something. Marriage, probably. Combining our lives, our resources. It made sense on paper. But tonight, seeing Ruby, seeing you, everything feels uncertain now. Don't do this, Lawson. My voice was sharp. Do what? Don't make this about us, about what we might have had 12 years ago. Don't romanticize the past or imagine some alternate timeline. This is about Ruby. Only Ruby. Nothing else matters. I know. A shaky breath. You're right. I'm trying to process that I have a daughter I never knew about, that I missed 11 years. First steps, first words, first everything. And I can't get that back. No, I said quietly. You can't. Can I see her? The question came out desperate. Please? Just for coffee or a walk in the park or anything. I need her to know I'm not trying to hide from this. That I want to know her. I'll ask her, I said. But Lawson, if she says no, I'll respect it, he interrupted. I promise. I'll respect whatever she needs. We sat in silence for a moment, the phone line crackling slightly between us. She really asks about me? He said. All the time, I confirmed, especially as she's gotten older, where you are, why you don't visit, whether you know about her, whether you'd love her if you did. What do you tell her? I told her you live far away, that you'd love her if you knew her, that none of this is her fault. You were kinder to me in her imagination than I probably deserved. I wasn't doing it for you, I said. I was doing it for her, so she wouldn't grow up thinking her father didn't want her, even if I thought that might be true. Paige, my name in his voice, after all these years, it did something to my chest, something I didn't want to examine. I have to go, I said abruptly. It's late. I'll talk to Ruby tomorrow and let you know. Okay, thank you. He stopped. For raising her, for doing it alone, for making her into someone extraordinary. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. Good night, Lawson. Good night, Paige. I ended the call, sat in the darkness of my bedroom, and for the first time in 11 years, I let myself really cry about the choice I'd made, about what Ruby had lost because of it, about what Lawson had lost, about what I'd lost too. Tomorrow would bring new complications, but tonight, I just let myself grieve for all of it. The morning after the talent show, I woke up to find Ruby already awake. She was sitting at our small kitchen table, a notebook open in front of her, writing something with intense concentration. "Morning, baby," I said, moving to start the coffee maker. "Did you sleep okay?" "Not really," she admitted without looking up. "I kept thinking about everything." I poured myself coffee, sat down across from her. "What are you writing?" She looked up then, and I saw the determination in her face. "Questions," she said, "for Lawson. If I'm going to meet him, I want to be prepared. I don't want to get emotional and forget what I need to know." My heart squeezed. "So, you've decided you want to meet him?" Ruby nodded slowly. "I'm still mad. At both of you. But I think I need to hear his side. I need to ask him things. And if I don't do it now, I'll always wonder." "Okay," I said. "I'll call him and set something up. Somewhere public. Somewhere you feel safe." "The bookstore," Ruby said immediately. "Henderson's. With the cafe. I feel safe there." Henderson's it was, an independent bookstore in Northeast Portland, the kind of place with worn wooden floors and the smell of old paper and a cafe that served overpriced lattes. Ruby had been going there since she was little. We'd spent countless Saturday afternoons there, her reading in the children's section while I graded papers or worked on my laptop. I texted Lawson, "Ruby wants to meet. Henderson's Bookstore Cafe. Tomorrow at 2. Come alone." His response was immediate. "Thank you. I'll be there. Thank you so much." The next day, we arrived 15 minutes early. Ruby wanted to scope out the location, choose exactly where she wanted to sit. She picked a booth in the back corner where she could see the entrance but felt protected by the high backs of the seats. She had her notebook, 3 pages of questions written in her careful handwriting. She'd numbered them, organized them by category. My methodical daughter, approaching this like a research project. Lawson arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. I saw him through the bookstore windows, pacing outside for a moment before coming in. He looked like he hadn't slept, rumpled, anxious, more human than I'd seen him in years. He spotted us and walked over slowly, like he was approaching something fragile that might shatter if he moved too fast. "Hi, Ruby," he said softly. "Hi," Ruby replied. Her voice was steady, but I saw her hands tighten on her notebook. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." Lawson looked at me briefly, then back to Ruby. "I know this is all very confusing and probably scary. It's weird," Ruby corrected, "but I have questions. I'll answer anything you want to know." Lawson slid into the booth across from us. "Anything at all. I promise I'll be honest." Ruby opened her notebook. She'd marked the first page with a pink sticky note that said Question 1. "Did you ever want kids?" she asked directly. Lawson didn't flinch from the question. "When I was younger, yes. I always thought I'd have a family someday. I liked the idea of it. But when your mom and I were together, I was completely focused on building my company. I thought kids could wait, that I had plenty of time, that I'd get to it eventually, after I'd established myself professionally. But you had Meadow only a year after you and Mom broke up," Ruby said. She was watching him carefully. "So it wasn't really about timing, was it? You just didn't want kids with my mom." The brutal honesty of children. Lawson looked like she'd punched him in the stomach. First he stopped, started over. "I don't know how to answer that in a way that's fair to everyone involved." "Just tell the truth," Ruby said. "I'm 11. I can handle the truth better than I can handle lies." Lawson took a breath. "Your mom and I broke up because we wanted different things from life. I wanted to focus entirely on work. 80, 90-hour weeks. No boundaries between my professional life and personal life. Your mother wanted a partner who was present, who prioritized our relationship, who came home for dinner, who remembered anniversaries." He met Ruby's eyes directly. "We weren't compatible anymore. The breakup was painful but necessary. And if I'd known about you, everything would have been different. I'm not saying I would have been a great father at 24. I probably would have made a lot of mistakes, but I would have tried. I would have wanted to know you. I would have wanted to be part of your life." Ruby made a note in her notebook. "Question 2, she said. "When you saw me at the talent show, Did you know right away I was yours? Not right away, Lawson admitted. At first I just thought you were a talented performer. But when you turned to take your bow, when the lights hit your face at a certain angle, I saw myself. The resemblance was unmistakable. Your eyes, the way you move, even the way you tucked your hair behind your ear. I knew. How did that feel? Ruby asked. This wasn't on her list. She was going off script. Like the ground disappeared underneath me, Lawson said. Like reality had just rearranged itself into a completely different shape. Terrifying and wonderful and devastating all at once. Ruby made another note. Question 3. Are you embarrassed of me? Is that why you called Meadow your only child? Lawson's eyes filled with tears. Ruby, no, I'm not embarrassed of you. I didn't know you existed when I said that. If I had known, I never would have said it. Never. Do you understand? I had no idea you were in that auditorium. But you said it, Ruby countered. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the hurt underneath. And I was right there. Even if you didn't know, I heard my father tell hundreds of people that his other daughter was his only child. Do you know how much that hurt? To hear that and know he had no idea I existed. I can't imagine how much that hurt, Lawson said. His voice was rough with emotion. And I'm so sorry. If I could take it back, I would. If I could go back and do everything differently, I would. Ruby stared at him for a long moment. Then she made another note. Question 4. What about Meadow? Does she hate me now? For existing? Meadow doesn't know yet, Lawson said carefully. Not the full truth. Fiona and I are trying to figure out how to explain it in a way that doesn't hurt her or make her feel like her place in my life is threatened. She's going to hate me, Ruby said matter-of-factly. I would hate me if I were her. She had you all to herself her whole life, and now suddenly she has to share with some kids she didn't know existed. She might be angry at first, Lawson acknowledged. Change is hard, especially for kids. But Ruby, this isn't your fault. You didn't ask to be kept secret. You didn't ask for any of this. And if Meadow directs anger at you, that's something I'll have to help her work through. That's my job as her father. And yours, if you'll let me. Question 5. Ruby's voice was quieter now. What happens now? Do I have to come live with you sometimes? Do I have to pretend to be a family with you and Fiona and Meadow? No, Lawson said firmly. Nothing happens that you're not ready for. This goes at your pace, not mine, not anyone else's. If you want to see me once a month for coffee, we do that. If you want weekly dinners, we do that. If you need space and time, we do that. You're in control here. Ruby studied him, her 11-year-old eyes far too knowing. What do you want? She asked. Honestly, Lawson's voice cracked slightly. I want to know everything about you. What you like, what you hate, what makes you laugh, what scares you. I want to come to your piano recitals, help you with homework, hear about your day, be your father in whatever way you'll allow. But what I want doesn't matter as much as what you need. Ruby closed her notebook. She looked at me. Can I talk to Mom alone for a minute? Of course. Lawson stood immediately. I'll be over by the magazine section. Once he was out of earshot, Ruby turned to me. He seems sincere, she said. He does, I agreed. But I'm still really mad about everything. That's completely fair. I don't know if I want him in my life, Ruby said slowly. But I also kind of want to know what it would be like to have a dad who shows up, who cares, who wants to be there. She looked down at her hands. Is that stupid? To want that even though he didn't know about me for my whole life? It's not stupid at all, baby. I pulled her close. It's completely normal to want to know your father, to want that relationship. What do you think I should do? I think you should do whatever feels right to you, I said. If you want to give him a chance, I'll support that. If you want to walk away, I'll support that too. This is your choice, yours alone. She was quiet, thinking. I watched her process, weighing options with a seriousness that broke my heart. Can we try? She finally said, like, slowly. See if he actually means what he says. But if he messes up, if he's not consistent, I'm done. For real, absolutely, I said. Those are very reasonable terms. Ruby nodded. Okay, tell him okay. The rebuilding started slowly, carefully. Lawson came to dinner at our apartment once a week. Tuesday nights. He never canceled, never rescheduled, never showed up late. He'd bring groceries sometimes, ask what we needed. offer to help with dishes. He was tentative around Ruby at first, clearly terrified of saying the wrong thing, of pushing too hard, of scaring her away. But gradually, Ruby softened. She started telling him about school, about her piano teacher, Mrs. Chen, about the marine biology documentary she'd watched, about her best friend, Emma. Lawson listened like every word was precious, asked follow-up questions, remembered details for the next visit. He helped her with math homework, which was my weak point, sat beside her at our cramped kitchen table, walking her through algebraic equations with patience I'd never seen from him before. He came to her winter recital, sat in the front row this time, brought flowers. His face when she played was pure pride and wonder. It was working. Despite everything, despite the complicated history and the lies and the lost years, it was actually working. And then came the aquarium. It was supposed to be their fourth outing alone, just Lawson and Ruby. He'd pick her up at 10. They'd spend the day at the Oregon Coast Aquarium. He'd have her home by 3. Ruby was excited. Actually excited. She'd been talking about it all week. Lawson promised they'd see the shark tunnel and the jellyfish exhibit, and maybe catch the sea otter feeding time. At 9:45, my phone rang. "Hey, Paige." Lawson's voice was off. Tight. "So, slight situation." My stomach dropped. "What situation?" "Fiona saw my calendar, and she's bringing Meadow to the aquarium. She thought it would be nice for the girls to spend time together, to start building a sisterly relationship. Isn't that great?" My blood turned to ice. "You did what?" "I didn't plan this. Fiona just showed up at my place with Meadow." "But this could be good, right? The girls' meeting? Starting to form a bond?" "Put Ruby on the phone," I said. My voice was deadly calm. "Right now, Paige, maybe we should put my daughter on the phone immediately, or I'm calling the police." I wasn't joking. A pause, rustling, then Ruby's small voice. "Mom? Baby, are you comfortable with this? With Meadow being there?" "I guess." Ruby's voice was uncertain. "I mean, Lawson's other daughter is here, Meadow, and Fiona keeps staring at me weird and asking me questions." "What kind of questions?" "Like why I don't visit Lawson's house, and why nobody told her about me before, and whether I look like Lawson and—" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Mom, Fiona looks really upset, like she's trying not to cry, and Meadow seems really confused. She keeps asking her mom what's happening." I was already grabbing my keys. "Ruby, honey, put Lawson back on the phone." "Paige," Lawson started. "You have exactly 10 minutes to get my daughter to the aquarium main entrance," I said. 10 minutes. "Or I'm calling the police and reporting that you've taken my child without my permission into a situation I did not approve. Do you understand me? That's not fair." 9 minutes and 45 seconds. I hung up. I drove to the aquarium in a white-hot rage, breaking every speed limit, not caring. My daughter had been ambushed, thrown into an uncomfortable situation with Lawson's girlfriend without warning, without preparation, without any consideration for how that might feel. When I arrived, Ruby stood at the main entrance with Lawson. Her face was blotchy from crying. Fiona and Meadow were nowhere in sight. "Get in the car, baby." My voice was gentle with Ruby, lethal when I turned to Lawson. Now, Ruby practically ran to my car, climbed in, shut the door. I watched her through the window, saw her curl into herself. Then I turned the full force of my fury on Lawson. "You ambushed my 11-year-old daughter," I said quietly. "Dangerously. You threw her into a situation with your girlfriend and your other daughter without warning, without preparation, without considering for one single second how that might feel for her. Fiona showed up. I didn't plan. I don't care if the president himself showed up unannounced. I stepped closer. You had one job: keep Ruby safe and comfortable. Instead, you prioritized your own convenience over her emotional well-being. You prioritized avoiding an uncomfortable conversation with Fiona over protecting Ruby. It was an accident." "No, Lawson." I cut him off. "An accident is spilling juice. This was negligence. This was you making the same choice you always made, the easy path, the path that serves you best in the moment." I moved toward my car, then turned back. "Don't contact us for a while. I need to decide if I can trust you enough to continue this. Paige, please. I'll call you when I'm ready, if I'm ready." I got in my car, drove away without looking back. Ruby was silent beside me. I took her for ice cream, put on her favorite movie when we got home, sat with her on the couch and just held her while she processed. "He doesn't really want me," she finally said. Her voice was small, broken. "I'm just the kid he has to deal with because you told him about me. Meadow was right. I'm just extra. I'm the mistake he didn't know about." She started crying, really crying, the kind of crying that shook her whole body. I held her while she sobbed, fury at Lawson and at myself building in my chest, fury at the situation, at the choices that had led us here, at the fact that my beautiful daughter felt like a mistake. But Ruby surprised me the next day. "I want to write Meadow a letter," she announced over breakfast. I looked up from my coffee. "Are you sure?" "She's my sister," Ruby said. "Half-sister. And none of this is her fault either. We're both just kids stuck with confused parents who don't know what they're doing." She had a point. Ruby spent an hour at the kitchen table, composing carefully. I watched her cross out lines, start over, chew on her pen cap the way she did when she was thinking hard. Finally, she handed it to me. "Can you read it and tell me if it's okay?" I read, "Dear Meadow, I know you're probably really confused about me. I'm Lawson's daughter from before he met your mom. He didn't know about me until the talent show at school. I don't want to take your dad away from you. I know what it's like to not have a dad around, and it's really lonely. I don't want you to feel like that. Maybe we could be friends, even though this is all really weird and complicated. I'm sorry everything got so messed up. From Ruby. P.S. Your dance at the talent show was really good. I can't dance at all. I'm terrible at it. Do you like other stuff besides dancing?" "It's perfect," I said, handing it back. "Honest and kind, just like you." We mailed it that afternoon. I had no idea if Meadow would receive it or if Fiona would intercept it. No idea what would come of it. 3 days later, a response arrived, addressed to Ruby in careful, rounded handwriting. Ruby tore it open, read silently, then read it again. "She doesn't hate me," Ruby said, wonder in her voice. She handed me the letter. "Dear Ruby, my mom says you're my half-sister. I didn't know I had a sister. It's really weird. I'm not really mad at you, but I'm confused why Dad didn't tell me about you. Mom says he didn't know, but that seems impossible. How do you not know you have a kid? I do like other stuff besides dancing. I like drawing and horses and reading fantasy books. What do you like? Do you want to meet for real? Not with the parents being weird?" From Meadow. Ruby read the letter 3 times. Then she looked up at me with tentative hope in her eyes. "Can I write back? Can I maybe meet her?" "Of course, baby. Of course you can." And so began a correspondence between 2 sisters, navigating the mess their parents had made, finding their way to each other despite everything. They exchanged 5 letters before they asked to meet. We arranged it carefully. A park, public, both mothers present, but at a distance. I watched Ruby and Meadow sit on a bench together, awkward at first, then gradually warming. Ruby showed Meadow something on her phone. Meadow laughed. They walked to the duck pond, threw pieces of bread Ruby had brought. Fiona stood beside me, both of us watching our daughters from 50 feet away. "She looks like him," Fiona said quietly. "Your daughter? The resemblance is striking." "Yes," I said. "I'm not angry at you," Fiona said, "or at her. This isn't your fault. It's just..." She stopped. "It's made me realize some things about my relationship with Lawson, about whether we were ever building something real or just something convenient." "I know that feeling," I said. We stood in silence watching the girls, united by loving complicated men and raising daughters who deserved better than the situations we'd put them in. 2 months after the aquarium disaster, Lawson called again. "I know you said not to contact you," he started, "but I need you to hear something. Please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. Same cafe where Ruby had asked her questions. Full circle. He looked different when he walked in. Tired, but somehow lighter, less burdened. "I ended things with Fiona," he said without preamble. "I hadn't expected that." "Oh, not because of Ruby, or not only because of Ruby." He ran his hand through his hair. "She was the catalyst. But the truth is, Fiona and I were building something that looked good from the outside but was hollow inside. We stayed together because it made sense. Similar backgrounds, similar goals. Good for both our public images." He met my eyes. But there was no real foundation, no genuine intimacy. We were partners in building a life, but not in actually living one. Does that make sense? It does, I admitted. Ruby forced me to look at that, he continued. Forced me to confront what I actually want versus what I thought I should want. And I realized I'd been living my life like a business plan, optimizing for outcomes instead of actually experiencing anything. That's very introspective of you, I said. But Lawson, that's not my problem to solve. I know. He pulled out his phone, showed me something. I'm stepping down as CEO of my company, moving to chairman of the board. Fewer daily responsibilities, more flexibility, more time. I stared at him. You're stepping down? You're walking away from the company you built? Not walking away, just stepping back. He put his phone away. I spent 12 years building a company, Paige. I want to spend the next 12 building relationships with my daughters, both of them. I want to actually be present for their lives. Words are easy, I said. Actions are what matter. I know. That's why I'm asking for a chance to show you through actions. Let me prove I've changed. Please. I thought about Ruby, about the careful hope I'd seen growing in her eyes before the aquarium disaster, about the letters she and Meadow had been exchanging, about whether Lawson deserved another chance, or if I was being naive. One more chance, I said finally. But Lawson, if you hurt her again, if you flake, or prioritize something else or make her feel like she's not important, we're done. For real. Forever. I won't, he said. I promise you, I won't. The second attempt went better. Lawson showed up consistently. Tuesday dinners, never missed. Ruby's piano recitals, front row every time. Her science fair, cheering louder than anyone. When she got the flu, he brought soup and sat with her, reading aloud from her favorite books while I went to work. He was present. Actually, genuinely, consistently present. And I watched Ruby bloom under his attention. Watched her open up. Watched the careful walls she'd built start to come down. She started calling him Dad. Not all the time, but occasionally, casually, like it was no big deal, even though it was the biggest deal in the world. Hey Dad, can you help me with this math problem? Dad, did you see that article about bioluminescent jellyfish? Dad, Mrs. Chen says I should audition for the youth orchestra. Do you think I'm ready? Every time she said it, Lawson's face did this thing, like he was trying not to cry, like he couldn't quite believe he got to be called that. Ruby and Meadow became actual sisters, not in the traditional way. They didn't live together, didn't share rooms or clothes or the daily friction of sibling life. But they talked on the phone, video chatted, met up every other weekend. Meadow came to Ruby's piano recitals. Ruby went to Meadow's art shows. They were building something real, something that belonged to them, not to their parents' complicated history. And me? I watched Lawson transform, watched him show up day after day, week after week, month after month. Watched him choose Ruby over work calls, over meetings, over the things that used to consume him. One Tuesday, 6 months into the second attempt, Lawson stayed after dinner to help Ruby with a history project. They were sprawled on our living room floor, construction paper and markers everywhere, building some kind of diorama. I watched from the kitchen, pretending to clean up but actually just observing. The way Lawson listened when Ruby explained her vision for the project. The way he followed her lead, let her be in charge. The way he praised her creativity. This was who he'd become. Or maybe who he'd always been underneath the ambition and the drive. The man I'd fallen for at 23, before success had consumed him. And I realized, with a jolt that felt like touching a live wire, that I was falling for him again. Not the memory of who he'd been, but this version, humbled, present, transformed by loss and the commitment to do better. It terrified me. If you've made it this far in this story, if you're invested in whether Ruby and her father can truly heal, if you believe people can change, I need you to do something. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear about second chances and forgiveness. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? Have you ever watched someone genuinely transform? Because what happens next, the choice I had to make about whether to risk my heart again, it's going to surprise you. Don't go anywhere. It was Ruby's 12th birthday. Exactly 1 year after Lawson had missed her 11th. Exactly 1 year since the talent show that had detonated all our lives. Lawson showed up at 2:45, 15 minutes early. He'd never been early to anything in his life when we were together. He carried a carefully wrapped present and a homemade cake on a platter. I baked it myself, he admitted sheepishly when he set it on our counter. It's probably terrible. I've never baked a cake before, but I wanted to try. It was indeed terrible, lopsided, slightly burnt on one edge. The frosting was uneven. The decorative piping looked like it had been done by someone having a seizure. It was the most beautiful cake I'd ever seen. Ruby loved it. She took one look at it and burst out laughing, but it was joyful laughter, not mocking. "You really made this yourself?" she asked. "YouTube tutorials in 3 attempts," Lawson confirmed. This was actually the best one. The party was small. Emma and 2 other friends from school. Meadow, of course. Fiona even stopped by briefly to drop off a gift, friendly and gracious in a way that suggested she'd found her own peace. After the guests left, after the cleanup, after Meadow had been picked up by Fiona, Ruby asked the question I'd been half expecting for weeks. "Are you guys getting back together?" I dropped the plate I was holding. It shattered on the kitchen floor. Lawson froze mid-fold of the tablecloth. "That's," I started. "Complicated, honey. Seems simple to me." Ruby leaned against the counter, watching us with those 2 knowing eyes. "You look at each other all googly now, and you smile more when he's around, Mom. And he's here like, all the time. Not just for Tuesday dinners anymore." She had a point. Lawson had been finding excuses to come by. Dropping off books he thought Ruby might like. Bringing coffee for me on Saturday mornings. Staying later and later after dinners to talk. "Well, Ruby," Lawson said slowly, "that would depend entirely on your mom." My heart stopped. "It would?" Lawson set down the tablecloth, looked at me directly. "I love your mother," he said. "Not to me, to Ruby." But his eyes never left mine. I never stopped loving her, even when I was too much of an idiot to realize it, even when I was prioritizing all the wrong things. And I'd very much like to build something real with her, if she'd have me. Ruby looked delighted, but she had one more question. "What about Meadow? Would she be okay with that?" "I actually talked to Meadow about it last week," Lawson said. "She said, and I quote, 'Ruby's mom is way nicer than you deserve, Dad, but if she makes you happy and makes Ruby happy, then I guess it's okay.'" Despite everything, I laughed. That sounded exactly like Meadow. Ruby looked at me expectantly. "Well, Mom, what do you think? How did you explain 12 years of complicated history to a 12-year-old? How did you admit that despite the pain and betrayal and anger, you'd been falling in love all over again?" "Your father hurt me very badly once," I said carefully, "when we were young, and I'm scared it might happen again." Lawson stepped closer. "Then let me spend the rest of my life proving it won't. Let me show you every single day that I've learned what actually matters. That I'm not the man who chose ambition over love anymore. That I'm not the man who would miss his daughter's birthday or forget anniversaries or put work first." He took my hand. "I'm not asking you to marry me tonight. I'm not even asking you to officially call this dating. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, we could try again. Build something better than before. Something honest and present and real." I looked at this man, familiar yet transformed, broken down and rebuilt into something more genuine, more human. Then I looked at Ruby, who was practically vibrating with poorly contained excitement. "One condition," I said. "Anything," Lawson replied immediately. "We go slow. We do this right, with intention and care and communication. And if at any point this affects Ruby negatively, if it confuses her or hurts her or makes her feel unstable, we stop. She comes first. Always." "Agreed," Lawson said. "Completely agreed." "And Lawson?" I squeezed his hand. "If you hurt either of us again—" "I won't," he interrupted. "I promise you, I won't. I spent 12 years building companies and making money and achieving success. And none of it mattered. None of it made me happy. You two, this, what we're building together, this is what matters." Ruby made a sound that was half squeal, half laugh. "Does this mean we're going to be like a real family?" "We already are a real family," I said. "Just maybe a slightly different configuration than we were before." 6 months later, Lawson and I sat in a small restaurant. Intimate. Candlelit. The kind of place that didn't take reservations unless you knew someone. "This is nice," I said, sipping wine that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "What's the occasion?" "Can't a man take the mother of his daughters to dinner?" Lawson smiled at me across the table. Daughters, plural, I corrected. You have two now. Remember? How could I forget? Lawson laughed. Meadow texted me 17 times today about her riding competition next week. She's panicking about whether her horse is ready. And Ruby sent me 4 articles about marine biology programs at Monterey, complete, with a cost-benefit analysis of why she should go to summer camp there. Are you going to let her? Probably. She made a very compelling PowerPoint presentation, color-coded slides and everything. I laughed. That was my daughter. Thorough to a fault. We ordered food, talked about the girls, about Lawson's company, about my work, about everything and nothing. It felt easy, natural, like we'd been doing this for years instead of months. After dessert, Lawson reached across the table, took my hand. Paige, there's actually something I wanted to talk to you about. My stomach flipped. A good flip, but still. Okay? We've been doing this, dating, rebuilding, whatever we're calling it, for 6 months now. And every single day, I fall more in love with you, with the life we're building, with the family we're creating together. Lawson, I'm not rushing you, he continued. I just need you to know that this isn't temporary for me. This isn't some phase or rekindled nostalgia. You and Ruby and Meadow and the life we're building, you're everything to me. You're what I should have prioritized 12 years ago. He squeezed my hand. I know I can't get those years back. I know I missed too much. But I'm here now. Completely here. And I'm not going anywhere. Tears blurred my vision. You're sure? Because if you're going to change your mind, if work is going to consume you again, I've never been more sure of anything, he said firmly. I wasted 12 years not being with you. I don't want to waste another day. I love you, I whispered. I'm terrified, and we have so much complicated history, and we're going to have to navigate co-parenting and blended family dynamics and all of it. But I love you. It's not stupid, Lawson said, and we'll figure out the complicated parts together. All of it. As a team. He pulled something from his pocket. A small box. My heart stopped. I said I wasn't proposing tonight, and I'm not, he said quickly. But I wanted you to have this, as a promise, that I'm committed, that I'm in this, that when you're ready, whenever that is, I'll be here. He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver ring. Beautiful, understated, perfect. It's a promise ring, he explained. Like we're teenagers. I know it's cheesy, but I wanted you to have something tangible, something that reminds you that I'm serious about us. I let him slip it onto my right hand. It fit perfectly. Thank you, I managed. For showing up, for changing, for proving that people can actually transform if they want it badly enough. Thank you for giving me the chance, Lawson said. For letting me know Ruby. For not shutting me out completely when you had every right to. We sat there, hands linked across the table, wine glasses empty, the restaurant gradually emptying around us. We had a long road ahead. Blended families were never simple. There would be challenges, conflicts, moments of doubt. Ruby was entering her teenage years. Meadow would need reassurance that she wasn't being replaced. We'd have to navigate holidays and schedules and all the logistical nightmares of modern co-parenting. But for the first time in 12 years, I felt hopeful. Not the naive hope of my early 20s that believed love conquered all, but the earned, hard-won hope of someone who'd survived loss and rebuilt something stronger. 2 years later, our backyard was filled with people. Friends, family, colleagues from both our lives. Kids running between adults with the chaotic energy of a summer barbecue. It was loud, messy, perfect. Ruby, now 14, sat at the piano we'd moved onto the deck specifically for this party. She was playing for anyone who'd listen, and most people were listening. She'd been accepted to a prestigious summer music program at Juilliard and wouldn't stop talking about it. Her playing had gotten even better, more nuanced, more emotionally complex. Meadow, 12, was showing off her latest drawings to a cluster of relatives. She'd become quite the artist, selling pieces at local youth exhibitions. Her work hung in our hallway, mixed with Ruby's competition certificates and family photos. And in my arms, bundled in a soft blue blanket despite the summer heat, was the newest addition to our complicated family tree. He looks like you, Fiona said, appearing beside me. Her fiancé, a kind man named Marcus who worked in sustainable architecture, stood beside her. Fiona had surprised everyone by becoming genuinely friendly over the past 2 years. We'd bonded over the shared experience of loving difficult men, of raising strong daughters, of navigating complex family dynamics. "He has Lawson's nose," I said, looking down at our 3-month-old son. "Poor thing." "Hey," Lawson appeared, slipping his arm around my waist. "Careful not to jostle the baby. My nose is distinguished." "It's been broken twice," I reminded him. "Which makes it distinguished," he insisted. Fiona laughed. "I'm going to find the girls. They were whispering earlier and plotting something. I want to make sure it's not too mischievous." As she walked away, Lawson pulled me closer. The baby slept peacefully between us, oblivious to the party happening around him. "Happy?" Lawson asked quietly. I looked around at the scene. Ruby finishing her piece to enthusiastic applause. Meadow showing her art with pride. Friends and family mingling. The evidence of a life fully lived, fully shared. This wasn't the life I'd imagined at 23, pregnant and alone and terrified in that clinic bathroom. It wasn't the future I'd mapped out when I made the choice to raise Ruby by myself. It was better. "Yeah," I said, leaning into him. "I'm happy." Ruby finished her piece. The crowd applauded. She took a bow, then looked over at us and grinned. "Dad," she called out, "you promised you'd do karaoke." "Don't think I forgot." Lawson groaned. I was really hoping she'd forget. "Never going to happen," Meadow chimed in, appearing with a microphone and a mischievous smile that reminded me so much of Lawson. "We already picked your song. No backing out." "This is going to be terrible," Lawson muttered. But he was smiling as he handed me the baby and walked toward the makeshift karaoke stage the girls had set up. Both daughters flanking him like bodyguards, both of them laughing already at the song they'd chosen. I watched them. This family we'd accidentally created, then deliberately rebuilt. Not traditional, not simple, not without scars and complications, but real, genuine, built on the foundation of people who kept showing up even when it was hard. As Lawson absolutely butchered a Beatles song while both daughters laughed and clapped, while the baby slept in my arms, while friends and family cheered, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace, not the absence of challenges. We still had those. Ruby was entering high school. Meadow was navigating middle school. The baby would bring new complications. Lawson's company still demanded time. My work still required attention. Blended family dynamics still needed constant navigation. But we were doing it together. All of us. Messy and imperfect and wonderfully, beautifully real. I looked down at my son, at the ring on my left hand now, at the wedding band that matched the one on Lawson's finger. We'd gotten married 6 months ago. Small ceremony. Just family and close friends. Ruby and Meadow as co-maids of honor, bickering about dress colors and flower arrangements in the way real sisters did. This family wasn't built from ideal circumstances or perfect choices. We were built from people who made mistakes and apologized and tried again, who learned that love isn't about grand gestures or sweeping declarations. It's about showing up, consistently, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard. It's about choosing each other, day after day after day. It's about the small moments, Tuesday dinners, homework help, terrible homemade cakes, karaoke at backyard parties, holding hands across restaurant tables, saying I'm sorry and I'll do better and I love you. Ruby appeared beside me, flushed from laughing at her father's singing. "You okay, Mom?" "I'm perfect, baby." She leaned her head on my shoulder, careful not to disturb her sleeping baby brother. "This is pretty great, isn't it? All of us together like this?" "Yeah," I said. "It really is. Even though it was complicated at first, even though it hurt and was messy and we all made mistakes, especially because of that," I said. "The best things in life usually are complicated and messy, but if you're brave enough to work through it, to show up even when it's hard, you might discover something more beautiful than you ever imagined." Ruby was quiet for a moment. "Then, is that what you tell someone going through something similar? Someone who had to make a hard choice about telling a truth that might change everything?" I thought about the question, about the message this story carried. "I tell them that there's no perfect answer," I said slowly. "That whatever choice you make, there will be consequences and complications. But that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give people the chance to rise to the occasion, to be better than you feared they'd be. I tell them that people can change if they want to badly enough, that second chances are real, that forgiveness is possible, even when the hurt runs deep. And I'd tell them that family isn't just biology, it's choice. It's showing up. It's the people who keep trying, even when it would be easier to walk away. Ruby nodded thoughtfully. I'm glad you told him, she said. Eventually, even though it was scary. I'm glad I got to know Dad. And Meadow. And have all of this. Me too, baby. Me too. Lawson finished his song to raucous applause and laughter. He took an exaggerated bow, both girls hanging off his arms, all three of them grinning. He looked over at me, caught my eye, smiled in a way that said, "Can you believe this is our life?" I smiled back, a smile that said, "I can." And it's everything. The party continued around us. Music and laughter and the sound of family. The complicated, beautiful, hard-won sound of people who'd found their way back to each other. This was our happy ending. Not perfect, not simple, not without scars, but real. Built on forgiveness and second chances and the daily choice to love, even when it's hard. And in the end, that was better than any fairy tale. If this story moved you, if you believe in the power of forgiveness and second chances, if you've ever had to make an impossible choice or watched someone truly transform, I want to hear from you. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment about your own experience with forgiveness or family, or finding your way back to someone you thought you'd lost. Hit that subscribe button because we'll be sharing more stories about real love, messy families, and the courage it takes to try again. And remember, the greatest love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other. They're about imperfect people choosing each other, day after day, mistake after mistake, building something real from broken pieces. Sometimes the family you create through choice, through commitment, through showing up every single day, even when it's hard, is stronger than anything biology alone could build. Thank you for being part of this journey. I'll see you in the next story.